The stars above were cold and silent. In the darkness of space there was a place forgotten by time, a place known as the alien graveyard. It was not made of stone or earth, but of broken ships, twisted metal, and the bones of creatures from many worlds. The wreckage stretched across the barren ground like a sea of death. Everywhere there were skeletons of machines and skeletons of life side by side. The graveyard smelled of rust, ash, and sorrow. Even though there was no air to carry such smells, it felt as if sorrow itself had a weight here. This was not a place where anyone wanted to stay. It was a place where war had left its scars. Ships had fallen from the sky long ago, burning like stars crashing down. Armies had fought, but no side had won. Only death had claimed victory here. And now, only silence ruled. Yet in that silence, something was alive. Among the bones and broken ships, a young alien girl lay hidden. Her skin was pale and faintly glowing, her eyes large and bright like moons. She was paralyzed from the neck down, her body weak and unmoving. Her family had brought her here and left her. They had whispered cruel words before walking away. "You cannot walk, you cannot fight, you cannot help us, you are a burden." Then they had turned their backs, leaving her among the ruins. The girl's heart still beat, her breath still came, in small gasps, but every day felt like it might be her last. She could not move, could not run, could not even call for help. She lay there among the shadows, staring up at the stars. Sometimes she wondered if she was already half dead. Sometimes she wished she could close her eyes and never wake. But still she lived, and still she hoped. The alien graveyard was a cruel prison. Strange sounds echoed at night. Whispers of wind that was not wind. Machines long dead gave off sparks, their lights flickering like dying candles. Shadows moved where nothing should move. The girl often thought ghosts walked here, the ghosts of fallen soldiers and broken machines. She did not fear them, because she was already close to death herself. She feared something else, the thought of never being found, never being loved, never being remembered. Her eyes followed the sky every day. She watched stars pass slowly, one after another. She wondered if someone out there could see her. She wondered if the universe even cared. Her family had left her, like trash, but in her heart she still dreamed of kindness. "Will someone come?" she whispered inside her mind, though her lips could barely move. "Will anyone ever see me?" Sometimes scavengers passed through the graveyard. They came in rusty ships, greedy eyes searching for metal and weapons. The girl hid in silence, afraid they would kill her or sell her as a slave. No one had ever looked at her with mercy. No one had ever stopped to ask why a child lay in the ruins. To them she was nothing more than part of the wreckage, so they left, and she stayed. Her hunger grew each day, her body thinner and weaker. But her eyes still glowed with life. Even when her tears dried, she refused to close her eyes. She told herself again and again, "I will not die forgotten, someone will come." The wind whistled through the graveyard like a song of sorrow. The stars gave no answer, but still she waited. Then one day, something changed. The ground shook, slightly as if something heavy had landed. A shadow fell across the broken ships. The girl's eyes widened, her weak heart beating faster. This was not a scavenger's ship. It was smaller, older, almost broken, and from it stepped a figure, tall and strange, not an alien like the others she had known. This one had a face of flesh, eyes of fire, and hands scarred by labor. It was a human. The man walked slowly through the graveyard, his boots crunching over bones and metal. His eyes searched the ruins. With caution, he looked like someone who had survived many dangers, someone who trusted nothing. Yet, there was something different in his gaze. Not only suspicion, but also a quiet sadness, as if he knew this place too well. The girl wanted to cry out, but her lips barely moved. She tried to make a sound, even a whisper. Her heart screamed, inside her chest. "Please see me, please don't leave me." The man stopped, his head turning slightly. He felt it, that strange sense of being watched. He narrowed his eyes, scanning the shadows, and then slowly he saw them. Two glowing eyes staring at him from the wreckage, his breath caught. In this graveyard of death he had found life, but he did not know yet if this life was a blessing or a curse. The girl's eyes shone with fear, but also with a fragile hope, and for the first time in forever she was not alone. The graveyard was silent, but silence could not hide everything. The human's boots pressed against broken bones and twisted steel, every step echoing in the emptiness. His name was David, a scavenger who traveled from world to world searching for forgotten machines and scraps to sell. He was tired, his ship was weak, and his stomach empty. But he had learned long ago that survival was about searching where others feared to go, and no one feared more than this place, the alien graveyard. David's eyes scanned the ruins with sharp focus. He had been in battlefields before, had walked among wreckage and death, but something about this place made his skin crawl. The air felt heavy, though there was no true air, only the silence of space pressing against his helmet. It was as if the ground itself remembered pain and wanted to whisper it into his bones. He moved carefully, his gloved hand brushing against a piece of broken metal. The shard was sharp, burned black from ancient fire. He thought about the battles that had ended here, about the lives that had been lost. In his heart, he felt a strange weight, not fear but sorrow, and yet he kept walking because sorrow could not fill his stomach. He needed to find something of value before others came. As he searched, he felt something, not the hum of machines, not the crackle of static, but the weight of eyes. It was the feeling of being watched, a feeling every soldier and scavenger knew well. David froze, listening, scanning the shadows. Nothing moved, no sound but the creak of broken steel. Still his instincts whispered, "You are not alone." His hand went to the small weapon at his side. He was not afraid of scavengers. He had dealt with them before. He was not afraid of beasts. He had outsmarted them on other worlds, but this feeling was different. It was not danger, it was something else. Slowly, his gaze turned toward the ruins of a shattered ship. There, hidden between metal beams, two faint lights stared back at him. At first he thought they were reflections, like stars trapped in broken glass. But then the lights blinked slowly, weakly. Eyes. David's chest tightened. In this graveyard of death there was life. He stepped closer, careful, cautious, his boots crunching softly. The lights grew clearer, two wide eyes glowing with pale light, filled with fear. The girl, paralyzed and fragile, watched him with everything she had. Her body could not move. Her lips could not call out. But her eyes begged louder than any voice. David stopped a few feet away, his breath fogging inside his helmet. A child, he thought. Abandoned. Broken. Alone. He lowered his weapon slowly, showing her his empty hands. "I'm not here to hurt you," he whispered, though he doubted she could understand his words. The girl blinked once as if answering. Her chest rose and fell quickly, her heart racing. She had prayed for someone to come, anyone. And now someone had. But fear and hope mixed together. Would he leave like her family? Or would he kill her like the scavengers? She did not know. David looked closer, his eyes studying her thin body, the way she lay trapped and helpless. Something inside him stirred, something he had tried to bury, a memory of war, of children caught between battles, of lives thrown away. Because they were weak, he clenched his jaw, the anger cold and quiet in his chest. "Who did this to you?" he muttered softly, though he already knew. Only family could abandon with such cruelty. The girl blinked again, her tears shining in the faint light. She wanted to tell him everything, but her body betrayed her. David crouched down, lowering himself so his eyes were level with hers. "I see you," he said, his voice firm. And in that moment her fear shifted just a little, not gone, but touched by a fragile spark of trust. The silence of the graveyard returned, but it was not the same. For the first time in endless days, the girl was not alone. And for the first time in years, David felt something more than survival. He felt responsibility. But danger was never far. Unseen by them, another ship had landed at the edge of the graveyard. Voices carried through the ruins, sharp and greedy, scavengers searching for spoils. David heard them faintly, his head snapping toward the sound. He knew the type. Men who killed for scraps, who sold lives for coins. If they saw the girl, they would not spare her. If they saw him, they would not let him leave. His heart beat faster, choices pressing down on him. He could walk away, leave her, survive alone. It would be the easy path, the smart path, the path he had taken many times before. But when he looked back, at the girl's glowing eyes, he felt the decision already made. He could not abandon her. Not here. Not like this, he whispered to himself. Not again. And with that, David reached out his arms, slowly, carefully, lifting the fragile girl from the ruins. Her body was light, too light, bones and skin with almost no strength left, but her eyes widened as she realized what was happening. Someone was holding her, carrying her, refusing to leave. Her heart, weak but stubborn, beat faster. For the first time since her family abandoned her, she was not lying in the dust of death. She was being carried toward life. The voices of the scavengers grew louder, echoing across the graveyard. David tightened his grip on the girl, his eyes narrowing. He had survived wars. He had survived beasts. He had survived space itself. And now he would fight to make sure she survived too. The graveyard had taken many lives, but tonight it would not take hers. David crouched low between the jagged metal walls of the ruined ship, the girl resting in his arms like a fragile shadow. Her breathing was shallow, her body too light, yet her glowing eyes clung to him as if he was her last chance. Around them, voices echoed through the graveyard, rough and sharp, the voices of scavengers who had come for spoils. Their boots crunched against bone and steel, their laughter cruel and careless. David's grip tightened, his heart steady but heavy. He knew the type. Men who stripped corpses for coins, men who sold children as slaves. They would see the girl not as a life, but as a prize. They would see him as competition, maybe even prey. David's mind raced. He had found her. He had lifted her from the ruins. But now came the choice: to walk away and save himself, or to risk everything for a girl who was not even human. He pressed his back against the broken wall, the girl's head resting on his shoulder. Her eyes locked on him, wide and pleading. Though she said no words, he could almost hear them. Though, please don't leave me, not like they did. Her family's cruelty burned in his thoughts, their cold voices whispering, "You are useless, you are a burden." His jaw clenched. "No," he whispered under his breath, the word cutting through the silence. "I won't do what they did." The scavengers drew closer, their flashlights slicing through the wreckage like blades of light. David shifted, hiding deeper in the shadows, careful not to let the beams touch him. The girl trembled slightly in his arms, not from cold but from fear. David's mind sharpened, calculating. He could stay hidden until they passed, or he could move now, slip away before they found them. Every choice was a risk. Every step could mean death. One of the scavengers shouted, "Check that wreck over there." Boots pounded against the ground, coming closer. David cursed under his breath. He pulled a small device from his belt, a broken scanner he had been planning to sell for scrap. With one swift motion, he tossed it across the wreckage. It landed with a sharp clink, then sparked to life. The scavengers snapped toward the sound, weapons raised, their lights cutting across the far side of the ruins. "Over there," one shouted. They ran, leaving David's hiding place in shadow. The girl blinked, her eyes shining with relief. David looked at her, a faint, tired smile pulling at the corner of his mouth. "That's one problem gone," he murmured. But he knew it would not last. Scavengers were like vultures, they always circled back, and he could not hide forever, not with the girl unable to move. He leaned closer to her, whispering so softly it was almost a secret between them. "I don't know if you understand me, but I need you to trust me." Her eyes glistened, a tear sliding down her pale cheek. Trust was all she could give, because her body gave her nothing else, and somehow that was enough. David shifted her weight carefully, holding her close. He could feel how fragile she was, bones thin as glass. skin cold like stone. But there was fire in her eyes, a fire that had refused to die even when her family left her in the dirt. He thought about leaving again just for a heartbeat. It would be so easy. Place her back in the shadows, slip away, live another day. But when he imagined her eyes watching him walk away, something inside him broke. He remembered other eyes long ago, eyes of children he had failed to save during the war. He had sworn never again, and now fate had brought him here to this graveyard, to her. The scavengers' voices grew louder again. They were frustrated, searching harder now. David's window was closing. He took a slow breath, his decision sharp as a blade. He would not leave her. He would not abandon her. If this graveyard wanted to take another life, it would have to take his too. All right, he muttered. Let's get you out of here. He rose from the shadows, carrying the girl against his chest, her glowing eyes reflecting the faint starlight. He moved quickly but quietly, slipping through gaps in the wreckage, using the broken ships as cover. Every sound mattered. Every step felt like it could be the last. Behind him, the scavengers argued, searching the ruins with growing anger. Someone's here, I can feel it. One growled, another cursed. Find them before they find us. David pushed forward, his muscles burning as he carried the girl. She weighed little, but the danger weighed much. Every breath was heavy, but he kept going. The girl's head rested against his chest, her eyes never leaving his face. She could not speak, but inside her, hope bloomed like a fragile flower. For the first time, she was not praying for someone. She was believing in someone. They reached the edge of the wreckage, the graveyard stretching wide before them. David paused, scanning the shadows. The scavengers were still close, too close. He needed a plan. He needed to move faster. But he also knew one thing with absolute certainty. The decision was made. He would fight. He would run. He would bleed if he had to. But he would not abandon her. In the graveyard of aliens, a bond had been forged. A human and a paralyzed alien girl. And though danger closed in from every side, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. For, in this place of death, something stronger than death had been born: hope. The alien graveyard was never silent for long. The scavengers' shouts grew sharper, their footsteps pounding against the broken ground, their flashlights cut across the ruins like blades, searching, hunting. David pressed the girl closer against his chest, her glowing eyes watching him with fear and trust. He could feel her heartbeat racing weakly against his arm. He whispered to himself, "We have to move now." The shadows became his shield, the wreckage his cover. He slid between walls of twisted metal, crouching low, every step careful but quick. Behind him, the scavengers' voices spread out, echoing, "There's someone here." One of them growled, "I saw movement." Another spat, "Don't let them escape. We'll gut them for parts." David's breath came slow, steady, but his mind was sharp as a blade. He had been hunted before, and he knew what hunters listened for. Mistakes, noise, hesitation. He would give them none. But the girl was fragile, too weak to help, too helpless to run. Every sound she made, even the faintest breath, felt like thunder in the silence. Still, he did not loosen his hold. If he had to fight with her in his arms, then he would. They reached a wall of broken ship hulls, jagged and tall. The only way forward was through a narrow gap. David squeezed, himself inside, the metal scraping against his suit. The girl's eyes widened, her body trembling, but David held her steady. Behind them, the scavengers grew closer, their lights flashing against the wreckage. "Over there," one shouted. "Don't let them run!" David pushed harder, shoving through the gap. On the other side, he landed on the dusty ground, his boots kicking up ash. He did not stop. He ran, his steps fast and quiet, carrying the girl like a shadow. Her head rested against his chest, her breath shaky. But her eyes stayed locked on him, shining with hope. She believed in him, and he could not fail her. The scavengers cursed loudly, climbing over the wreckage to chase them. Their flashlights swept across the ground, their weapons ready. David darted left, weaving between piles of bones and engines. Every corner hid danger, Every shadow could be death. But he trusted his instincts, the same instincts that had kept him alive through war and chaos. A spotlight swept dangerously close. David dropped to the ground, pressing the girl against him, shielding her with his own body. The light hovered, scanning the ruins. For one long breath, it felt as if the entire graveyard was staring straight at them. The girl's eyes filled with tears, her chest rising fast. David whispered in the faintest voice, "Stay quiet, stay with me." The light moved away and the footsteps faded to the other side. David rose again, never slowing. He moved deeper into the graveyard, but the scavengers would not give up. Their leader shouted, his voice carrying like thunder, "Find them, they can't hide forever." David's jaw tightened, his arms aching, but he refused to let go. The girl was trembling, but she did not look away from him. Her silent gaze told him everything. "I trust you." A sudden crack split the air. A scavenger had fired his weapon, the bolt of energy striking the ground near David's feet. Sparks exploded, lighting the darkness. David cursed, sprinting faster, his lungs burning. Another shot rang out, then another. The graveyard itself seemed to come alive. Fire lighting the shadows, explosions echoing through the ruins. David darted into a collapsed tunnel of steel, the air thick with dust. The girl coughed weakly, her small body shuddering. David pressed a hand over her back, whispering, "Almost there, just a little more." But his mind was racing. He could not run forever. The scavengers were too many. He needed a way to lose them, to outsmart them, not with strength, but with wit. He spotted it, an old alien engine, massive and broken, still holding faint sparks of unstable power. Dangerous, unpredictable, but perfect. David set the girl down gently against the wall, his hands moving quickly. He tore wires, crossed circuits, sparks jumping dangerously. The girl's eyes widened, watching him with fear. David gave her a faint smile. "Don't worry, I've done worse before." The scavengers' footsteps grew louder, their voices echoing closer. David finished the last connection and scooped the girl back into his arms. The engine began to hum, glowing with unstable light. As the first scavenger stepped into the tunnel, David ran the other way. The engine roared, then exploded with a blast of fire and smoke. The tunnel shook, metal crashing down, blocking the path behind him. The scavengers screamed in anger, trapped on the other side. David didn't stop to look back. He only ran. The girl clung to him weakly, her glowing eyes filled with awe. For the first time, she believed escape was real. Her lips moved faintly, whispering words he almost didn't hear. "Don't leave me." David's chest tightened. He looked down at her, his voice steady and certain. Never. The graveyard still stretched endless before them, dangers lurking in every shadow. But step by step, David carried her forward. He was not just running from death. He was running toward something greater. Hope. The explosion still echoed through the alien graveyard, firelight fading into smoke. David ran through the ruins with the girl in his arms, his boots striking against bone and steel. The air smelled of dust and ash, every breath harsh, but he did not slow. Behind him, the scavengers roared in anger, their voices carrying across the wasteland. They were trapped for a moment, but not forever, and David knew it. The girl clung weakly to his chest, her glowing eyes wide. She could not speak much, but her gaze told him everything. Fear, hope, and trust all mixed into one. She was fragile, too fragile for this chase, yet she refused to look away from him. David whispered between breaths, "Hold on, just hold on." The ground was uneven, sharp wreckage everywhere. David moved like a soldier, weaving through twisted metal, ducking beneath broken beams. Every shadow felt alive, every sound a warning. And then, the scavengers broke free, their footsteps pounding again. They were many, faster now, their shouts echoing. "Find them! Don't let the human escape!" Energy bolts shot past David, striking the ground, sparking fire. The girl flinched, her weak body trembling. David twisted sharply, leaping behind the shell of a fallen ship. The blast shook the wreck, dust falling around them. He pressed her, close, whispering, almost safe, though he knew it was a lie. He needed to slow them, to buy time. Scanning the ground, his sharp eyes found old alien machines half buried in the dirt. He shifted the girl carefully to one arm, pulling a small blade from his belt. With practiced hands, he cut through wires, pulled loose metal, and set a trap. Moments later, he stepped away, carrying the girl back into the shadows. The scavengers rushed forward, laughing cruelly. Then one of them stepped on the wrong plate of metal. The old machine roared awake, gears grinding, sparks flying. A heavy arm of steel swung down, smashing the scavenger to the ground. The others shouted, cursing, firing wildly. David didn't look back, but he heard it all. Every second gained was life for the girl. He moved faster, weaving through the wreckage like a ghost. The girl's head rested against his shoulder, her breath soft and uneven, her lips parted, whispering something faint. "Leave me. Save yourself." David's steps faltered for only a moment, then his voice cut sharp. "No, never." His eyes burned with fire. "You're not a burden, not to me." The scavengers closed in again, their numbers too many, their anger too loud. They spread across the graveyard like wolves, cutting off paths, driving him forward. David felt the trap of their movement. They were pushing him toward something. And then he saw it. At the edge of the wreckage, a shadow rose. Massive and terrible. Not a scavenger, not a machine, but something alive. A beast. Its body was huge, its skin like stone and scales, glowing with faint alien light. Its mouth opened, rows of sharp teeth glinting in the starlight. Its roar shook the ground, echoing through the ruins like thunder. The scavengers shouted in alarm, their weapons turning toward it, but the beast's eyes locked not on them, but on David and the girl. The girl's eyes widened in terror, a silent plea shining within them. David's grip tightened, his heart pounding. He had fought men before, he had fought machines, but this was different. This was nature's monster. Stronger, faster, hungrier, and it was between them and escape, where the scavengers saw their chance. "Kill the beast and take the human," one shouted. They moved in, firing bolts of energy, their greed louder than their fear. The blasts struck the beast, but instead of falling, it roared louder. It swung its massive tail, smashing scavengers aside like toys. Bones cracked. Metal shattered. Screams filled the air. David used the chaos, running to the side, searching for a path. The girl clung to him, her weak voice breaking. "You'll die." David shook his head, his voice firm and fierce. "Not today, not while you need me." The beast charged, smashing through wreckage. Scavengers fired, shouting, some fleeing in panic. The ground shook with every step of the monster. David dodged left, then right, his breath ragged, his arms burning. But he never let go, never slowed. The chase had changed now. It was no longer only scavengers, no longer only hunters. It was death itself, roaring, charging, hungry. David's eyes scanned fast, searching, calculating. Every second was borrowed time. Every breath could be the last. But still, he pushed forward. The girl's eyes stayed locked on his face, her fear deep, but her hope deeper. For the first time, she whispered, with strength in her voice, "Don't stop." And David answered without hesitation, "I won't." Behind them, the scavengers screamed as the beast tore into their ranks. Ahead of them, wreckage stretched endless. The chase was far from over, but David knew one thing as certain. As his heart beat, he would not abandon her, not to the scavengers, not to the beast, not to death itself. They would escape, or they would fall together. And in that graveyard of shadows, hope ran faster than fear. The ground shook under David's boots. The beast roared, its voice like thunder rolling through the graveyard. Its massive body glowed faintly in the darkness, scales shining like molten rock. Its eyes burned with hunger, sharp and wild. The scavengers fired their weapons again and again, but their bolts only bounced against its hide. The air was filled with screams, gunfire, and the crashing of metal. As the beast tore through them, David held the girl close, her small frame trembling in his arms. Her glowing eyes never left his face, wide with terror. She whispered weakly, "You can't fight it." David's jaw tightened, his breath heavy. He knew she was right. He could not kill such a creature with his bare hands and scraps, but running blindly would only end with both of them crushed beneath its claws. The scavengers regrouped, shouting to one another. Surrounded, hit it from all sides. Greed still burned in their voices, even as fear pulled at their steps. They wanted the human. They wanted the girl. And now they wanted the monster's body too. Fools, David thought. He crouched low behind a wall of broken engines. The girl, pressed close against his chest. Her heartbeat was weak, but it was steady. He could feel her trust even through her fear. And that trust gave him fire. He scanned the battlefield quickly, his soldier's mind racing. The beast was strong, but strength could be turned against itself. The scavengers were greedy. But greed could blind them. David had no army, no weapon strong enough to kill. But he had strategy, and he had the will to survive. And sometimes that was enough. The beast charged through a line of scavengers, its tail smashing them aside. One man screamed as he flew through the air, landing with a crunch against the wreckage. Another tried to run, but claws struck him down. Blood and fire painted the graveyard. But still the scavengers fought. Their greed made them fools, and David would use their greed, he whispered to the girl. Hold tight. Don't be afraid. Her lips trembled, her voice faint but firm. I trust you. His chest tightened, but he gave her a small nod. That trust was his strength, his reason, his choice. He moved fast, slipping between wreckage, circling the battlefield. The beast roared again, smashing against a collapsed tower. Of alien steel, the ground shook. Dust filled the air. Scavengers fired wildly, shouting curses, their lights flashing across the chaos. David spotted what he needed, an old fuel pod, cracked but not empty, lying near the scavengers' camp. Dangerous, unstable, but exactly what he wanted. He shifted the girl gently against his side, pulling a small detonator from his belt. The device was weak, barely working, but he had made worse things explode before. He tossed a shard of metal against the pod, sparks flying as it rolled. Then, he pressed the trigger. The pod erupted with fire, a deafening blast tearing through the camp. Scavengers screamed as flames swallowed them, weapons flying from their hands. The beast turned its massive head toward the explosion, roaring louder. It charged toward the fire, drawn by chaos, by heat, by blood. David used the moment, running fast across the wreckage with the girl. Her glowing eyes never left him, shining with both fear and awe. She whispered, "Why risk yourself? For me." David's breath came rough, his voice low but certain. "Because no one else would, and I won't be like them." But the danger was not gone. The beast's massive tail swept across the battlefield, smashing through wreckage. The ground split, and David stumbled, nearly falling. He caught himself, holding the girl tight, her eyes filled with panic, but he whispered quickly, "I won't drop you. I won't ever drop you." The scavengers, broken and burned, regrouped again. Some fled, into the shadows, but the most desperate stayed. "Kill the beast, take the human," their leader shouted, his voice cracked with rage. They fired again, bolts cutting the smoke, striking the monster's hide. The beast roared, turning on them, its fury now fixed. David watched, his mind sharp. If he timed it right, the scavengers would destroy themselves. If he failed, both he and the girl would die. He crouched low behind a pile of bones. The girl pressed close. Her voice trembled. "We can't win." David looked into her glowing eyes, his own steady and fierce. "We don't need to win," he whispered. "We just need to live." The beast lunged at the scavengers, its jaws snapping, one by one. They screamed as they were torn apart. The leader fought hardest, firing again and again until the beast's tail crushed him flat. Silence followed, broken only by the monster's heavy breaths. The battlefield was littered with fire, wreckage, and death. David stayed still, his heart pounding. The beast sniffed the air, its glowing eyes scanning. It knew something was near, something alive. David held his breath, pressing the girl against him. Her glowing eyes stared back at the beast through the cracks of the wreckage. For a moment, predator and prey looked at one another. The girl's body shook, her lips whispering, "Please." David's hand tightened on the detonator, his thumb trembling above the switch. One more explosion, one more risk. He had a choice: stay hidden and hope the beast left, or lure it away and risk everything. His jaw clenched, his voice low but certain. "I won't leave you to die, not like they did." The beast stepped closer, its massive claws scraping against the steel. David's breath came heavy, but his decision was already made. He would act. He would fight. He would survive. Because the girl was no longer just a stranger, she was his responsibility, his reason, his choice. And in that graveyard of death, a human's choice burned brighter than fear. The beast stepped closer, its huge claws dragging lines across the wreckage. Its glowing eyes burned like fire in the darkness, fixed on the small figure David carried. The alien girl trembled in his arms, her breaths shallow, her glowing eyes wide with fear. The air was thick with smoke and ash, the ground shaking with every step of the monster. The scavengers lay broken behind them, their greed swallowed by the beast's fury. But the danger was not over. Not yet. David's heart pounded like a drum. He crouched low behind the remains of a fallen engine, holding the girl close. The detonator, in his hand, was warm, one last charge waiting. His mind raced with choices, but his decision had already been made. He would not abandon her. Not now. Not ever. The girl whispered, her weak voice trembling. "You can't fight it." David's jaw tightened, his eyes never leaving the monster. "Maybe not," he whispered back. "But I can outsmart it." The beast's head swung from side to side, its nostrils flaring. It smelled them. It knew they were near. With a roar that shook the graveyard, it smashed its claws into the ground, tearing metal and bone aside. David moved fast, slipping through the wreckage, his arms burning as he carried the girl. The monster followed, smashing aside everything in its path. The graveyard itself seemed to collapse around them. David's eyes locked on something ahead. An old, alien tower, broken but still standing. Its base was cracked, its frame unstable. If he could bring it down, maybe, just maybe, it would trap the beast long enough for them to escape. But it was dangerous. The tower could fall the wrong way, and if it did, both he and the girl would be crushed. The girl's glowing eyes searched his face. She whispered, "Leave me. Run alone." David shook his head sharply, his voice hard. "No, I told you before, I won't leave you, not for anything." The beast roared again, charging. David sprinted toward the tower, every muscle screaming, his breath ragged. The ground trembled as the monster chased, claws smashing against wreckage. It was faster than he expected, each step closing the distance. The girl buried her face against his chest, but her hands clung weakly to his suit. Her fear was real, but so was her trust. They reached the base of the tower, its broken supports leaning dangerously. David set the girl gently against a wall, his eyes sharp and focused. Her glowing gaze never left him, tears shining at the corners. He pulled loose, wires cut through metal, and set the detonator into the weak point of the tower. Every second felt like a lifetime, the monster's roar shaking the air closer and closer. Finally, he stepped back, scooping the girl into his arms once more. The beast charged, its massive, jaws open wide. David pressed the trigger. The tower groaned, metal screaming as fire exploded at its base. With a thunderous crash, the giant structure collapsed. Dust and debris filled the air, flames cutting through the darkness. The beast roared in rage as the tower crashed down on top of it. The ground shook with the impact, the sound rolling. Like thunder across the graveyard, silence followed, broken only by the sound of falling dust and the girl's faint breaths. David held her tight, his chest heaving, his arms trembling with exhaustion, but he did not let go, not even for a second. Slowly, the dust cleared. The monster's body was trapped beneath the tower, pinned and broken. It still moved, weakly, but it could not rise. David's eyes stayed on it until he was certain it would not escape. Only then did he look down at the girl in his arms. Her glowing eyes shimmered with tears, her lips trembling. "You didn't leave," she whispered. David gave a tired smile, his voice steady though his body ached. "I told you. You're not alone anymore." The girl's tears fell, her heart filling with something she had thought was lost. Hope. Her family had left her to die, abandoned her in the dust, but this human, a stranger, had carried her, fought for her, risked everything for her. He had made a choice, and that choice had given her life again. David stood slowly, his body heavy, his strength nearly gone. But he carried her still, step by step through the ruins. The stars shone above, distant and cold. Yet they no longer seemed so far, not to her. Because in this graveyard of death she had found life. And in this man, she had found something greater than family. She had found someone who would never abandon her as they moved into the shadows of the graveyard, leaving the broken monster and the scavengers behind. The girl closed her eyes, whispering with the last of her strength, "You saved me." David's voice answered, quiet but strong. "No," he said. "You saved me too." The graveyard fell silent again, but this time the silence was different. It was not the silence of death, but the silence of survival, of two lives bound together by choice. And as David carried the girl into the unknown, the stars above seemed to burn brighter. For in a place where all hope had died, a new story had just begun.